Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newark Municipal Council special meeting, special conference meeting. Council members, in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice has been provided to the Star Ledger, the Jersey Journal, and to the public at large establishing the date, time, and location of this meeting. May I have a roll call of those present, please?
Amador, absent. Gonzalez.
Present.
James, absent. Jennifer Jenkins, absent. McCallum.
Present.
Osborne.
Present.
Donna.
Here.
Ramos.
Here.
Trump, absent.
First order of business will be the Council of the Whole to elect Councilman Gonzalez as the temporary president.
Move. Second.
Roll call.
Amador, absent. James, absent. Jennifer Jenkins, absent. McCallum.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Trump, absent.
There's all.
President Gonzalez.
Yes.
On the
President
For a minute before.
on the agenda,
That was the shortest presidency.
you did a good job.
He was watching TV upstairs.
Hey, he must have heard you.
Yeah.
Oh, they hear me though.
I heard that there was a coup.
They hear me better than ever.
Better move quickly.
The first item of business on the agenda, we're on page 4, is Resolution 7R2A. This is a ratifying, authorizing, and amending resolution for the private sale and redevelopment. This is ratify and authorize the First Amendment to the redevelopment agreement authorized pursuant to Resolution 7R2B of the special meeting adopted on January 10, 2017 with Claremont Properties. This is to extend the due diligence period for an additional 1 year and authorize the acting director of the Department of Economic and Housing Development to grant 2 additional 6-month extensions for the due diligence period if necessary. At the request of the administration, Council of the Whole to defer action at this time to the special meeting of June 7th.
President, everything was,
It's a request to administration. I don't have a problem with that. We don't have anyone here from economic development that would explain to us
yes, we do.
why. But if the administration wants to defer it for a week, that's fine with me.
Good morning, Larry Crump for Economic and Housing Development. The request is made because we need to get the Director of Engineering with our Director of Economic and Housing Development to finalize a few items so that we can bring it back to the council.
I just spoke to the principal of the buyer, and he said that the contract provides for the use and occupancy, but that the contract was drafted 2 years ago. So we have been dragging this for 2 years now, and we are going to allow them to have even two more years to do the due diligence on this property. So I hope that we can close the sooner the better so that we can get the $2.7 million that we need to balance the budget.
Yes.
And they can start developing the project. You see, that area needs to be developed. The sooner, the better.
Absolutely, Councilman, we agree.
They've taken too long. It's 2 years.
So a week won't kill anyone, but we should expedite the process so that we can get this money the sooner the better.
Yes, Councilman, our goal is to resolve this as quickly as possible now.
Roll call to defer, Council of the Whole.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
James, absent. Jennifer Jenkins, absent. McCallum.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Absent. President Amador.
Yes.
How quickly things change from President Gonzalez to Gonzalez.
Councilman. Got your minute. You had your minute.
Enjoy your 15
I was
minutes.
watching
while you have it.
I was watching upstairs and I heard that there was a coup.
7R2B is a ratifying, authorizing, and amending resolution for the Department of Economic and Housing Development for a resolution endorsing to approve an agreement for the release of the redevelopment rights with respect to certain properties on Boyd Street by Bore Development LLC.
Mr. President, if I may ask, this has any connection to the One on Communications? The One on Communications is an ordinance defines 120 Albany Street. What is it? 930 McCarter Highway, Block 1, lots 30 and 46. Is that the one that we're exchanging for this?
Good morning, Councilman. No, it's not. Although it's the same principles, there are different items. They're not connected.
They are not related.
Thank you. Yes.
So they are ceding us the development rights on this property on Springfield Avenue.
Yes. What occurred was the developer here had the rights.
Is this a theater?
No, this isn't the theater. This is other property on Springfield Avenue and around that area. What happened is that this was done. This was the RDA was occurred in 2009, and what happened subsequently, there were no records of it initially. So what happened is the council approved someone else, another developer, for that same property. So this resolves that issue in terms of the two developers having that property.
Okay.
Council of the whole to adopt?
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James absent, Tennyfield Jenkins absent, McCowen,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Summer,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
absent, President Fedor.
Yes.
Mr. President, if I may just, it's very strange that we have, let's say, two designated developers for the same lots. How can we avoid that from happening again? Doesn't look good for the city. It's not good for the developers. These people invest some monies in these properties once they get the right to develop the properties. And if we cannot guarantee them that they are going to have the right to develop the property, we might even be sued.
Absolutely, Councilman. Yeah, absolutely. So what has occurred is, because of this matter, there's now a process that there's going to be a more stringent review to make sure that this doesn't occur again. Looking more back at archives and determining if there's any of the properties that are designated to a developer, whether in the past it's been designated. This has been the only occurrence that's happened so far. We don't expect it to happen again, but we are being more diligent to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Mr. President,
Councilman
I
Ramos.
have asked in the past, Larry, for a summary of all the pre-existing RDAs that are out there. I know in some instances, the council has the opportunity to do the designation, but there are some developers who are claiming that there were RDA agreements signed by individuals who work within the department, and I'm not sure what kind of validity those agreements may have if they're claiming the rights to a particular set of properties or individual properties. So I think this council should at least be aware of what existing RDAs are out there. How far back do they date? Let's say in the last 5 years, and what's the leverage that we have? If there's an existing RDA and that particular developer hasn't followed through on their end of their commitment as far as developing the site, at what point does the city take action so that that property reverts back to us and we can figure out what options we have?
Yeah, absolutely, Councilman. I will take that back, but we do have in our RDAs a default clause, and in the past we have used that clause to get properties back, and I think we will continue to do so. But I understand your question in terms of getting the list of all the pre-existing RDAs, and I'll work on getting that for you.
They should have a perpetual right to develop.
They don't. No.
That I believe that it should be automatic once the due date comes and they haven't developed the property, the city takes the property back. Because normally when you have those rights, courts are reluctant to take title away from someone that has a title. It's very difficult for a court to grant you the right of reversion.
Yes.
So we should have something that the developer agrees that if they don't develop within certain number of years, that the property goes back to the city of Newark.
Thank you, Councilman.
Ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Don't go too far.
7R2C is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Economic and Housing Development for acceptance of grant funds to conduct remedial action work. This is for the Friends of Team Academy Charter School and Ashland School, Inc.
Councilman McCollum?
This is
C.
Yeah, Mr. Crump, if you can explain this, there's no one about it. I think I have an idea what it is.
Yeah, Councilman, this is referring to a property that is 24 Ashland Street and 410-22 South 14th Street. In 2014, Team Academy purchased property from the city of Newark, and with regards to that property, there was a request that there would be a request grant money to help in terms of with the remediation of that property. They're going to use it as a field and I believe some other recreational facilities. So that's what this money is for.
By the soccer field up there.
Yes, sir, I believe that's right.
And the $643,000 will be assumed by Team Academy, the cost of this project?
It's grant money that will go towards the remediation for Team Academy to do this, for the remediation, yes, that's the question. What that means.
Right, but it's state funding.
Yes, sir, yes.
The funds are coming from the state, so it's public money.
Yes, it was the initial application for this grant was specifically for this project.
Okay.
Council of the Whole.
Gonzalez,
I'm sorry, which ones are we voting on?
7R2C on page 6.
Okay, yes.
James absent. McCallum,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
McDonough,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Mr. President,
absent. President Amador.
Yes. Councilwoman Shaney Phil.
7R2A, did you get the information that you were looking for?
The administration deferred for 1 week.
Oh, okay, because I had spoke to Ms.
I spoke to him yet.
Garcia.
I
Okay.
spoke to the principal of the buyer.
Oh, okay,
Never mind, I see him, he's there. Okay.
so that's deferred.
Next.
7R3A is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Engineering for refund of code compliance fee, refund of inspection fee based upon a cancellation. Council of the Whole to adopt.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James absent. Shaney,
Yes.
McCallum,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
McDonough,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
absent. President Amador.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Shaney Phil.
to the business administrator, there were some properties that I mentioned last year and the earlier part of this year that were city-owned properties in which water and sewers were attached to the properties instead of them being outright clean. And we were supposed to be getting a list of those properties and seeing that the refund went back to the residents.
Yes, Councilwoman Jack Kelly, Business Administrator. The councilwoman is referring to the city having sold property. That property should have been sold free of lien, any liens. So
Yes.
water and sewer balances should have been canceled. They were not. The water department has satisfied all of those homeowners. I will have a list forwarded to you via email on the balance of city council.
Would you please? Thank you.
Seven R 6A is a settlement of workers' compensation. Can we pass over this at this time so that we can go into an executive session and discuss this with Corporation Counsel? Let's go on to 7R 9A. This is a ratifying, authorizing resolution for the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, for professional services contract to provide clinical and forensic psychological and consulting services.
Mr. President. Could I ask the representatives from the police division to verify whether or not this is the vendor that was used to do the psychological assessment for the last police class that went into the academy?
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Johnson. Yes, it is the same one for the past year and a half that we've used.
Well, I know that there were some previous concerns regarding, I believe the gentleman's name was Dr. Guller, who was a previous psychiatrist who did the assessments. And from the information that I gathered back, and again, I don't have any data to look at, it appeared that there were a larger percentage of candidates that were failed in this last police class based on us using the new psychiatrist as to previous assessments that were done for other academies. Is that a good assessment of what happened?
I believe there were additional failures, but we also had a very large class this time, where we had smaller classes last time, but we haven't had any issues with this psychologist.
Okay. Were there a larger percentage of failures? I understand it was a big class, so you would have number-wise, there would be larger candidates who potentially failed, but were there a larger percentage of candidates failing in this last police academy class as to previous classes?
Good morning, Acting Lieutenant Deidre Gully for the Department of Public Safety. Yes, the number was increased, of course, due to the large number of recruits that we actually sent through, because we actually appointed 200 police officers versus 50 and 75 from the prior classes as well. So the percentage number did rise a little. Yes, it did, sir.
So is it the division's assessment that this particular vendor is providing, an adequate service for you in order to evaluate? Is this for new recruits or for individuals who are currently on the job that may be on a leave of absence that need to come back to work?
Well, she provides services for both, but mainly for as far as the recruits coming in, the applicants, yes.
Mr. President, my concern wasn't that she was not providing a good service to the city. My concern is that we have Rutgers here in the city of Newark that has a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists employed. Why send people to Morristown when we have, let's say, Rutgers here in Newark? I believe that we should use the resources that we have locally, and we might be able to save some money in the meantime. I believe that having that here is more convenient for the candidates that are supposed to be Newark residents, and it provides let's say, a contract to Rutgers to provide the services. So I believe that everybody gains if Rutgers were to provide the services. That's my only concern. I wasn't concerned about, let's say, Dr. Raffaello providing the services in a good fashion. My concern is why go to Morristown when we can do it locally?
Mr. President, I think we should be concerned if there is an unusually large failure rate that a particular psychiatrist offers as opposed to other test cases in the past. And I will say that the department in the past has tried to enter into an agreement with local universities. This is a very specialized kind of assessment that very few people, unfortunately, in the state will provide. We've gone out to RFP in the past, and it used to be that Dr. Guller was always the only respondent to the city's RFP. And when they talk to some of the local universities and hospitals, they basically, do not have that kind of expertise on staff to do the service. But my question related to the percentage of failures in the last class as it relates to the assessment compared to other test periods, I think is important for us to look at.
And Mr. Let me follow up with that, if I may say. We were having some issues with the previous doctor in terms of minorities being failing in a higher percentage than non-minorities. I would like to hear from you of the people that fail. What's the composition? They say, are minorities failing more than non-minorities? And how are we anticipating correcting that? Because that's the problem. That's why we got away from the previous individual that we had. And if we are having the same problem, I believe that we should have a way of getting out of that contractor as well. Do we have that data, let's say, of the people that fail, the racial composition of the people that fail?
Okay, I don't have that information with me present. However, I do recall that the rate wasn't too far off between all candidates across the board. But I do know during the actual process with Dr. Raffanella, in reference to the failure rate, I spoke to her, and what she assured is that when an individual takes the actual written portion of the examination, they then 3 days to 5 days later have a one-on-one interview with her or one of her team members. At that point, they get a chance to explain some of the answers that they put on their actual written application opposed to what they're saying in the interview. So she allowed them time to clarify what they're saying for proper understanding in her assessment. And if it's still kind of off base or something totally different from the information that's submitted in their personal profile, from the information they provide to us as the applicant, those are some of the bases that she uses as well as far as disqualifiers.
If you could provide to us the racial composition of the individuals that fail, I believe would be useful.
Sure, not a problem, sir.
Louis.
I concur to agree with Councilman Gonzalez about this. Around the country, they're utilizing their institutions in their communities. To go to Morristown before it was Oakland, it's just, when we have it here in Newark. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Dr. Restra, who is a psychiatrist at Overlook, and he was saying they do, for the local police departments, do the evaluation in the Department of Psychiatric at Overlook. It should not be different in Newark. You have a UMD&J, which is Rutgers now, as Councilman Gonzalez said, who could be looking at this. Around the country, they're utilizing, the police departments are utilizing local folks who understand local people. First of all, drive all the way up to Morristown, all the way to Oakland, where these young people are under a lot of stress trying to get all this paperwork done, and they get to these places, and first of all, by the time they get to the place, the frustration of just getting there, it's just, right now, you could just go right up, go South Orange Avenue, and you can go be evaluated.
Okay.
To go to Morristown or to go to Oakland, that's just, doesn't make sense.
Okay.
We should promote, and we should have maybe a whole, around the country, they're using diversity among psychiatrists that are diverse, who understand experience. Just because everybody has a doctorate in psychiatry doesn't mean that they have this, they understand if a person is fit or not fit to be a police officer. And I know that last class, a lot of females complained about it, that they were saying some of the questions that were raised.
What, during the written portion of the examination? Because we haven't got any complaints at all, sir.
Well, I spoke to a few, called me up, and said they would turn, and I just said, why? And they said, because some of the questions were not related to anything with police.
Well, the questions are related to the actual individual.
Right. I understand. Right. They were not satisfied. And they didn't call the police department, they called the local council person to tell us. As a matter of fact, with the academy, they call us about that it was at a state police facility, and they felt uncomfortable. And a lot of the folks that were turned down were people who I know at another academy that would have done well. I mean, that's just my opinion.
No, I understand, sir.
I'm speaking on behalf of the people who elected.
Yes, thank you.
I think one of the questions that Councilman Ramos raised is very important. Was there a disproportionate number of minorities who were excluded? And does Dr. Raffanello have the sensitivity and the wherewithal to take in consideration some cultural issues that police departments have to be sensitive to? So is it possible for you to provide us that information? And if we could defer this and get that information? But in addition to that, if you could give us, because I remember the reason why we got rid of Dr. Guller was because of the fact that he was disproportionately getting rid of a large number of Latinos, African Americans, and females. But the issue also becomes, would you provide us the names of some doctors that are being utilized in other municipalities for their police officers?
Yes, ma'am, we will.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. President, real quick suggestion, maybe we can host a Public Safety Committee meeting next Tuesday morning and have the Public Safety Director or his representatives there to provide us with the data, comparing the last two police classes that came in and the number of candidates who did not make it to the academy, and a percentage of the class that didn't make it. That's really the most relevant data we could look at, and if there is a breakdown, by ethnicity, that would be helpful as well. And then maybe send correspondence to Nancy Cantor over at Rutgers to see if we can at least begin the dialogue about possibly in the future utilizing the university. They would probably need to ensure that they have this expertise on staff so that they can possibly provide the service not only for Newark, but I'm sure there are a lot of other departments around the county that need the same service. So.
I think when we look at this, we need to go to the root of the problem. I'm much more interested in finding out how many other individuals responded to the RFP that was sent out. To get somebody from Morristown to respond to an RFP in Newark, and when we have individuals associated either with Rutgers or some other hospitals available in this area, something is wrong. And I think that the way we sent out somebody at, I don't believe in conspiracies, but they exist. And when somebody from Morristown is selected to do a job for $264,000, when we have tons of psychiatrists around here that could do it for less than that, there's something wrong with this process. So we need to go back. I'm interested in knowing how many people responded and where are they from.
Nobody responds to the RFP.
Okay.
That's the problem.
If nobody responded and this individual was the only one, we need to know if the local entities knew about this contract.
Okay.
And how was the bid written up so that they didn't respond?
Because this goes to the bottom of the entire situation. We can't select someone that doesn't know that the contract is up to be applied to. So we need to know about the process. How was the contract disseminated to the public? How many people responded? How many entities responded? If only one responded, I would like to know. Usually when an RFP goes out, there are some contacts that are made by different individuals with entities that could do the job. And if they're interested in being considered for this position, for this contract, they respond. If they're not, they don't respond. But I would like to know how many people knew about this contract from, or how many entities from around the area. Because when I see someone from Morristown responding, something's not right.
Okay, yes, Mr. President.
Councilman McCullough.
You know, when we voted on this contract, I think it was last year, I was uncomfortable. I'm even more uncomfortable this year. We're talking about historical discrepancies in the police department, and now we're talking about the numbers and the percentages in 2018. And I just think at this point it needs to be addressed. I can't believe we're still having that conversation. And I thank the Councilman Gonzalez for bringing this up, because Rutgers is right here, and they do have the resources, more so than a private doctor up in Morristown. So there's some questions to be answered about why she would even be considered, unless she's the greatest psychologist in the world. Why would we be considering her up in Morristown? I just don't get it. So.
I think the only thing that we did by switching this contract from Oakland to Morristown is changing the name of the psychologist. That's the only thing. Problem is still there. We talked about the number of individuals who have been refused or not approved. We're talking about the amount of the contract. We're talking about process. So we're still talking about the same things that we talked about when the contract was with somebody else. What we need to know is how the communities surrounding in Newark that could be doing this type of job found out about this, if they did find out.
Mr. President, if I may, I don't want, I understand that there's a class that is being formed, and I don't want this deferring this too long to affect the class, because I know that we need the police officers on the street. But I believe that it's important that we have someone that is cognizant of the different ethnicities and different conditions that we have in the city, that is going to be ascertaining that those conditions are taken into effect or are taken in consideration when making the evaluation of these candidates. So it's not the same if you're, let's say, from Baskin Ridge or from Bernardsville, from those areas, and you go to a psychologist in Morristown, to one that is coming from Newark and going to a psychologist in Morristown. As indicated before, when you get to Morristown, you maybe get lost. Let's say there's a lot of other pressures affecting you, and when you go to that test, you might not be in the best of shape to take the test. That is going to determine your future, your life. Because if you become a police officer after 25 years, you are going to hopefully retire from that job and enjoy your life afterwards. So I believe that we are putting a lot of pressure on these individuals that we're sending out of the city that is going to affect their whole life. So I believe that I don't want to defer this for too long, but I believe that we need to study. Let's say if there's a possibility of having it here in Newark.
Okay, can I just add one thing? We're speaking about the actual test itself, the assessment. I just want to be sure that we are aware that the actual test is in reference to the applicant itself. Like, all the questions are geared towards you as the individual. Like, not so much as taking a SAT exam is not based that way. All the questions are geared towards you as an individual. Like, for instance, would you do anything for anyone? Yes or no? So
how will you react? How will you react to this? How will you react to that?
Correct, right. As you as an individual, it has nothing to do outside of yourself.
Well, don't forget one thing, that this contract runs from April 1st to March 31st. So we have approximately 9 months to go on this contract. What I'm saying is the comments that you hear from all of us and the concerns should be taken into consideration
They are.
when the contract comes up to either be renewed or a new RFP goes out. That's all we're saying.
Yes, we understand, sir. Yes.
Let's say, where in the process are we with the new class?
Well, we start orientation actually this Saturday and Sunday. We're holding 4 orientations per day, and the academy is slated to start August 13th of 2018.
Oh, and they
Have
have
they
to,
gone through the,
no, they have to be evaluated before they go into the academy. So there must be something in place immediately.
Correct, sir, yes.
So that's my concern, that we are going to delay that class.
Mr. President, the clerk, do we have a special schedule for Tuesday of next week?
We have a special schedule for Thursday the 7th.
So if we have the public safety meeting on Tuesday, review the data.
Councilman,
From Sergeant
Tuesday's
Kelly.
Election day. Tuesday's election day.
Okay, then Thursday morning before the special.
Yes.
And then we'll have this on the agenda Thursday.
So we'll defer action to the special of
The special-
June
the
7th?
Special, we want to move on this.
Yes. Council of the whole to defer action until the special of June 7th.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Davis absent, Shannon Jenkins,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes?
absent, President Amador.
yes.
7R12A is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Water Sewer Utilities for change order number 2, amending resolution 7R2E of June 21st, 2017, and 7R12D of March 27, 2018, execute change order for the Queens Ditch Restoration Project.
Someone here from the water department that can explain the change order?
750,000.
Good morning, council members.
Morning.
John
Morning.
George, Chief Engineer for Department of Water and Sewer Utilities. I'll answer any questions.
What's the reason for the?
What is the reason for the increase of $750,000?
Mostly it is overrun of quantities that are estimated quantities included in the contract. We have included various items with estimated quantities. And one item which is particularly higher than the estimated quantity is the disposal of contaminated material that we found during excavation of the ditch that was filled for so many years and which was not working. And while removing all the material, the contaminated material excavation and disposal item increased tremendously. And we have quantified all those items in the attachments to the resolution. And in addition to that, the soil conditions did not allow the originally designed pile foundation to support the concrete culvert that had to be installed. So there was a redesign of the pile foundation that had to be done during the course of the project. That increased the that changed the pile design considerably, and there was additional quantities of concrete and piles, and pile design itself was changed. The pile caps had to be widened to support the concrete culvert. So these items involved work change directives and quantity overruns. That's the 750,000 comprised of.
Mr. President, who was the original engineer that designed and gave us the cost estimates as to?
The original engineer who designed is CDM Smith Incorporated.
So are they the ones doing are they being paid the cost overruns? Are they still the engineer?
Yeah, they were just the engineers designing the project for us, and we had a lot of difficulties with this project because we were going through private property owned by Harts Mountain Company through their parking lot that they are using as a long-term parking lot for United Airlines right across from the airport in front of the Best Western Hotel. So the difficulty in doing this work, keeping the parking lot open, was extremely difficult. So we had to find other means to find a access into the construction area through the back at a different spot around the other corner of the parking lot, so that the parking lot was not completely closed. They could still use the parking lot for the United Airlines, which the property owner had, and we could also build the concrete culvert which went through their property. The project was a little bit out of the ordinary due to so many unforeseen conditions that we ran into. After we designed the project, the property owner had made changes to their parking lot by paving and putting up fences and other things, which we had to deal with after we awarded the contract. So there were some changes in terms of installing additional jersey barriers to protect the trucks running into the ditch on the other side, adjacent property, as well as fences to protect the people who drive into the parking lot from accidentally running into construction area for safety reasons. So all these things had to be managed during construction, so there are some overruns of quantity in the contract that we had included, which we had to account for. The project is pretty much done. The contractor actually did work in a very fast pace, and the project, we are happy to report that the project is substantially complete at this point, and they have a few more weeks for final completion to do the punch list work and to submit show the as-built drawings and the equipment manufacturer manuals for the netting chamber that we just built.
So in other words, Harts Mountain did what they normally do. They get in the way and would not allow you the opportunity to have a straight easement to go into doing the work that needed to be done. They traditionally have had that history in the city of Newark when it has come before us in the past of trying to gain access to properties that they either control or a portion of it. They would not allow us easements in the past. So, okay, so it was Harts Mountain involved. Thank you.
Two questions. When the contract was first given to Rancor Incorporated, did we know at the time the level of contamination and what type of contamination the site had? And if not, why not?
We did to some extent. We had some soil borings from previous years that we did, and we were not able to, we are not actually allowed to go into the property and take more soil samples before we actually broke ground. We had to rely on the information we had. We estimated quantities based on that. And when the actual ditch excavation was done, the material had to be sampled before it could be disposed of. So those test results came as contaminated material, and which had to be disposed of at a approved landfill.
So, and as far as the increase as a result of the contamination, the change in contamination, is it because of the transportation, it's because of the disposal, or it's because of the excavation of the material?
The unit, sorry, the unit price includes dredging the material, then transporting it and disposing it off.
So this company is also responsible for that?
Rancor Incorporated, the contractor, is responsible for that.
The other question is, you said before that the work is almost done.
Yes.
It's about a week or 2 weeks. Why are we looking at a change order now that the work has been completed, and not when we were faced with those potential changes related to contamination, related to whatever obstacles we had to face because of the paving of the property and whatever, why not come to us at the time and change the contract? Why wait until we're finished and now come before us and basically put our backs against the wall and say, the work is almost done. You have to sign off on it.
If I may answer, there are a couple of reasons for that. The quantity estimates we have in the contract, we make our best estimate of how much it will take to complete the entire project. That's based on the information that's available at the time that we design the project. And during construction, we found some differences in the soil condition, which necessitated pile design change and so on. Waiting of the construction at that point was going to affect us in a couple of ways. Number one, we had an easement from the property owner for a limited number of months. Actually, that easement is going to run out in July.
I don't want to cut short your statement, but what I'm saying is, you knew that. Well, I'm not saying you personally, but we knew that this was going on. We knew that this was going on. We knew that whatever language we had in the contract had to be changed, and potentially we were going to have a change order ultimately. So at the time that we found out that the obligation on the part of the company changed, therefore they would be coming before the council with a change order, why not come before the council at the time and say, we need to change the contract because the language of the contract has changed substantially and the responsibility of the contractor has increased? Why not at that time?
We didn't know the extent of the overrun of quantities early on. As I said before, the contract moved very quickly. Within the last 2-3 months, majority of the work was completed, and we had the luxury of getting the easement run out and then not able to enter back into the property to complete the work. And also we had a permit from DEP. So there are actually various permits which had completion dates and expiration of the permits, which also played a role. And basically, the main reason is we didn't have the exact extent of the number of tons of material that had to be disposed of and so on to bring to you a final tally of the whole thing. Right now we do have that, and we are prepared to close out the contract if we get approval to with this change order.
Yeah, Mr. President, if I may say, if they come here too early, they don't know, as he mentioned, the quantities that are going to be necessary, and then we may have to have more than one change order, because if we estimate too low, they will have to come back to us for an increase of that. So I believe it's better to wait until the project is almost complete. No additional funds are going to be necessary, so we know exactly how much it is that we need to pay.
That's correct, Councilor.
Rest my case. Okay? Good.
I'll move it.
We have a second?
Thank you. I'll second.
Second, because the project is almost complete.
Yes.
Roll call.
And I think what Councilman Amador was saying is the original contract was done June 2017. They didn't have to come back and tell us the dollar amount, but they should have at least have given the council some forewarning that there's a change order that's going to take place.
As information, but
as for informational
we
purpose.
cannot vote on information. We vote on amounts.
Yeah, but we're still not blindsided by knowing there's a change order at the end of the day.
We have a move in a second, if I'm not mistaken. Vote, please.
Roll call.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James, absent. Shaneyfield Jenkins.
Yes.
McCallum.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Quintana.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Absent. President Amador.
Abstain.
Mr. President, before we proceed, Mr. President, the Acting Director of Economic and Housing Development is present, and he would like to go back to Seminar 2A and to address the council.
You have to address the administration. The administration was the one that required
Good morning, Larry Crump, Economic Housing Development. Unfortunately, the director got called to a meeting in the mayor's office. He wanted me to express a couple items with regards to this, because he knows more about this project than I do. Number one, that in terms of some of the questions that you had, Councilman Gonzalez, is the major reason for the extension is based upon the fact that there were ECA bonds. Some of the properties were included in the ECAI bonds, excuse me. So what we were doing was working on getting a resolution to swap out some of those properties so that it does the whole NJIT campus, so to speak, part of that campus. And that was the major reason for the delay and the necessary for the amendment, as opposed to their
engineering having
yes
use of the building.
yes. So that's the actual
And also, it was the city's fault.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying right now. I'm saying that it was because
I understood that. I just wanted to have, let's say, if we can close on the transaction, get the money, and allow and pay rent for the building that we're using.
And that's the other part. We're going to do the use and occupancy agreement. That he said that they're in the process of working on that right now. So the hope is that we can that the council would reconsider this matter so that we can move forward, close on it, do the use and occupancy agreement, and all that, and wrap it up.
Do we have the use and occupancy agreement?
Well, it's being worked on as we speak.
Because if we approve it, what's the use of having the use and occupancy agreement if we approve the transaction as it is?
Because the city is the one that caused the developer the hardship and caused this project to be delayed, and the city did not take into consideration the ECIA writing, the statute from the ECIA, the language. And that was the holdup. And so therefore, they can't turn around and...
I agree with that, and I am good with that, let's say, but if we approve the transaction as the transaction is, then we will have to come back to approve the use and occupancy. Why not incorporate the use and occupancy agreement to the transaction before we approve it?
Councilman, I believe the initial RDA allows for the use and occupancy without going back to the council.
That's what Mr. Herrera indicated to me, and I would love to see that that's the case, so that we can close on the transaction, get the $2.7 million, and then get rid of it.
And that's the intent to do.
Let's do it.
Well, I moved it and you seconded.
To reconsider.
Is Carmelo?
Unfortunately, I got called
in
to
the meeting with the mayor.
He got called to the mayor.
We have an executive that we have to do for the settlement. Let's do that, and then Carmelo can come.
Mr. President, could I ask the clerk's office, last meeting, the Director of Public Works mentioned something about us having a contract possibly this week for additional street sweepers. So I didn't see that on the add a starter page. I don't know if the BA can address that, or the clerk.
The sweep what?
Additional street sweepers. That's what Director Thomas said last week at the meeting.
So it stays deferred?
For now, Mr. President, at one point in time, I have asked that we study the possibility of closing Halsey Street from Central Avenue, I think it was, to the terminus here. And I haven't heard one way or the other what's the status of that study. summer is approaching. Businesses would benefit from having tables outside, and the people would benefit from having a place that there's not too much traffic, because as you expressed, some people live in the area and they need to park the cars or whatever. But we need.
I told you the people want to see something like that happen.
But I would love to see what is happening in terms of closing that to traffic now that the summer is approaching.
Well, Edison Place is being considered for closing for that purpose.
And Halsey would be even better, because there's much more restaurants on Halsey Street.
I think they are talking about the downtown district is proposing to close those streets.
That was something that I requested like 6 months ago, and nothing. I haven't heard one. So, Madam President, if you can send a letter to the engineering department, Madam Clerk, and to
back to the agenda.
And to to the director of security of what is it?
Public safety.
Public safety.
Yes, Councilman.
And I think the most important thing there is you got to get buy-in from the businesses in that area. Like they should definitely be on board with this idea, because they're the ones that are affected the most.
The businesses on Halsey Street have benefited when they've had a couple of street festivals in which it was pedestrian only access from a certain time frame to a certain time frame.
Maybe that's the way to do it. You do it after a certain hour.
Yes, I would suggest that I believe 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock or whatever it is.
Okay. Moving right along.
Yes, back to the agenda, the added starter sheet. 7R1A is an authorizing ratifying resolution from the Department of Administration, Division of Central Purchasing, for the extension of Emergency Contract E 2017-25 to provide shelter to at-risk individuals.
Is this a shelter for the homeless?
Come on. Can we please allow Dr. Wade?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Sorry. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dr. Mark Wade. I'm the Director of the Department of Health and Community Wellness. I am here this morning to request approval of the council and of an additional $585,000 to extend the opening of the homeless shelter at 224 Sussex Avenue through June 30th. And that's the request, and with the council's permission, I'd just like to review the history of this shelter.
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry?
We don't have that dollar amount.
Wait.
We only have 363,000, so where's the amendment? The new sheet?
No, you're right. I'm sorry. 363. 363. My mistake.
All right.
And
my mistake.
And on the resolution, it says that the entity address is 555 Passaic Avenue in Caldwell, West Caldwell?
No, sir. This is 224
So,
Sussex Avenue. I'm not sure what you're looking at.
We're not sure what you're looking at.
we don't have that, sir. We don't have that on the agenda. We have to provide a shelter for at-risk individuals. We have the name, we have the entity address, but we don't have the location, and the amount is different.
I'm going to tell you what it is, okay? The owner-operator of the shelter is Emergency Housing Services.
Please.
Okay, that's the owner-operator of the shelter. We're talking about the shelter at 224 Sussex Avenue.
That's not what this is, though.
We're talking about, I'm telling you what I'm bringing before you. If it's something different, then I'm not the person to stand here and address it.
Well, is this the Dolnix?
Right, that's clear. The address here is the address of the owners of the shelter. What's being addressed is a request to increase funding, extend the contract to June 30th, and increase funding in the amount of $363,000 so that the city can continue the operation of that shelter through June 30th. The shelter is located at 224 Sussex Avenue.
Dr. Wade, the resolution reads till May 31st, not June 30th. So whatever amount you're asking for an increase is consistent with what you're saying. This is the corporate address of this entity, probably.
It is.
But the date, the contract period is from May 14th to May 31st, not till June. So I don't know if that's March 14th to May 31st.
If I may, council members,
Thank you.
Let me give you some clarity. What you have, what was printed for you on the blue sheet was the original resolution that was given to us by the department. They have since amended it, and the change that change did not carry through on the blue sheet. I will pass to you the original document, which is what you're actually voting on, which has the new numbers and the new termination date as June 30th.
Okay, so the amount increases to 585.
That's right.
And the end date now is June 30th, 2018.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm going to pass this around so everybody else.
So let me ask you a question. On the original allocation of dollars for 224 Sussex Avenue, when do we do that vote?
The original. This is to extend that contract.
They were under emergency.
They were under emergency contract, so we never voted originally for.
That's correct.
So to date, if we include the $585,000 that we're discussing to consider in total from the opening of the shelter, which was on what day? December
13th.
December 13th.
Right.
To
June 30th.
June 30th.
Right.
We would have spent a total of $900 and some odd $1,000, or how much?
Roughly $1 million. 900 something, yes.
Well, I'm saying 900 and something, because I'm just trying to do a ballpark, but you obviously would know.
I was only going to share a ballpark figure, okay? 500, and the shelter opened on the 13th. Our original, it opened on the 13th. The original contract was through March 31, okay? And approximately $500,000 would have carried us through March 31, okay? And that was to be an emergency, temporary winter shelter to take us through the winter months. Due to the extended cold, the mayor decided to try to extend the services there as long as possible, so that the second, which was reflected in this number of $363,000, would have been to carry us through May 31st of this temporary winter shelter to get us through all of the cold weather. And we were able to identify within the city this additional amount of money, which we are bringing to you for approval. Now, when that was announced last Tuesday by myself on behalf of the city, okay, to shelter providers and homeless services advocates, there was an appropriate, okay, response of displeasure, okay, to which we went back and looked again, and the mayor was able to identify additional funding to go through the 30th of June. That total is $585,000, which we're asking the council to approve so that we can keep the shelter open through June 30th. That is the reason that I'm in front of you this morning.
Mr. President, could I ask a few questions, Dr. Wade? So my understanding is that the rate that the city's paying is the approved daily rate that this entity has through the state of New Jersey. Is that correct?
It's the approved rate that we agreed to and that the council agreed through in terms of the amount of money we asked for. That rate has not changed since we started.
And is it the intention of the administration after June 30th and hopefully enough provisions are made to transition some of these individuals into other temporary, hopefully permanent housing, that in the future, when the city does engage another shelter provider during the Code Blue months, are you going to enter into some kind of competitive contracting process to hopefully get some options available to you as to which shelter provider would be best equipped to handle the services that the city needs?
That's always been our intent. And again, this winter shelter was extended 2 extra months due to the weather and the mayor's commitment to do the best that can be provided for this group. It was never intended to be a year-long shelter, an emergency temporary shelter, so that as we look at next winter, we will have to enter into a competitive bid process for anyone to take on this responsibility again.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, that process should begin now, because obviously the bid process takes some time, and you would want to have those contracts before this council sometime in the fall, whether September, October, for recommendation, so that you have access to those beds during the Code Blue months.
Yeah, we've already started those discussions and plan to have that before the council before the fall.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. President.
When did we get the changes? When did the city clerk get the changes related to this resolution?
Yesterday.
And we still have the old information before us to vote for? Let's assume, for example, that Dr. Wade was not around, and we were faced with this old information based on what we have before us.
Councilman, we were questioning some information in the resolution, and when they came back to us, they agreed that we were correct and they were going to make those changes, and then they indicated that they also wanted to add the additional money and extend the date. So all of that was done in discussions midday yesterday, and they sent us a change document which we put into the system, but we've been having issues with the system, and all of the information that did not carry through, so the title did not change in the system. But the resolution that we have in writing is the correct numbers.
Question, Dr. Wade. So when you say that the mayor identified the money, from where at in the health department? Is this ESG unresolved residual monies that weren't used, HOPA? What constitutes the dollar amounts that you were able to utilize thus far?
Surely. The initial $500,000 plus was from the Department of Health and some reprogrammed dollars from ESG, HUD approved. Okay, that was the initial to come. Only one of us can talk at a time if you want to hear. Okay. So that was
first
bring
of all,
us
Dr. Wade,
let
me just say something. Now, you are a professional.
Yes,
you can tune out those other folks. Please.
Will do.
All right. Because they yell at us too, and we're still able to conduct business. So continue because we're
Correct.
trying to get the information. You said that
The
it was-
initial funding to bring us through from December 13th through March was going to be from the health department and reprogram dollars from ESG approved by HUD. Okay. The extension from March through May 31st was additional dollars that were identified from the city coffers. I can't tell you exactly which coffers on those, but I can get some assistance in terms of exactly where those dollars came from. Those were a little over $350,000. Okay, that would have brought us through May 31st, which is what 2 weeks ago I would have been standing in front of you to present. Okay, this last opportunity to look for additional dollars is what has brought about the change that was finally pulled together to present to the city clerk by yesterday for the purpose of coming before this council. And those are additional dollars that have come from CDBG funding.
So let me ask a question. Before you had the meeting with the homeless service providers,
Yes, ma'am.
was there no opportunity for you to meet with the council so that we would not be blindsided by the fact that those service providers, after they showed their annoyance to you and their displeasure, that you had to know that they were going to immediately start calling us?
I want to take full responsibility for not having brought this to the council before with me leading that presentation last Thursday. Okay? None of us were focusing on it, but as the one in charge of that effort, I take responsibility for not having had a discussion with the council beforehand.
And you're saying that HUD in writing gave you all permission within the health department to repurpose the ESG monies?
I'll be glad to share with you the emails that went back and forth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so, Mr. Kelly, the director has indicated that there was monies that were utilized that weren't from the health department. Would you be aware of what those the dollar amount was, and from which line item it came from?
Yeah.
Councilwoman, in addition to the CDBG funds that were used, the city had utilized $363,000 from the previous year for running the warming shelters. That would be with police overtime, recreation staffing, cleaning all of the cots, providing food, and those funds were used from the city coffers.
Okay, so we paid for the food. We gave the vendors the money for the food.
This was the previous year when the city was operating the shelter at JFK.
Right.
When we reviewed all of our costs, there was approximately $363,000 that was spent with city funds to various, again, police overtime, public works, health. It needed to be staffed when we had 100+ individuals there, and those were the associated costs with when the city was running its shelter at JFK.
Okay, and so going forward, Dr. Wade, what is the plan you're saying that you would be using for a shelter? The councilman referred to a bid going forward. So is the city still trying to replicate this process for a shelter in the winter months of 2018 and going into 2019?
We know that going forward, we're going to have to provide sheltering for homeless individuals, be that code blue, be it a replication of what we did this year. We are looking at how we can best service that clientele. I cannot give you the details of that plan at this point. We have never stopped planning for that because, again, this was a temporary emergency situation that we addressed, and we are looking to do an even better job going forward. It will have to involve, if we're doing sheltering, as we did this year, an RFP process, and that's what I responded to in terms of Councilman Ramos's question. So yes, there will be a process. There will be a bid process that goes out when we get there. We're not there yet. We are in the end of May, but we are working through what we want to put out to bid, what are going to be the parameters for it, length of time, space requirements, etc., so that it can go before a bid process.
So will some consideration be given to, instead of the city trying to do the facility, the possibility of spreading those dollars to those agencies that do have the capacity to do shelters? And also, is there gonna be any look or examination through the continuum of care groups to try to see how we could do some rapid rehousing, since that's the way of COCs are going?
All of that process we're involved with, okay? Any sheltering capacity will have the opportunity to respond to an RFP when it goes out. The reason that we have this entity, because it was an emergency declaration. Any sheltering capacity that can meet the requirements will have an opportunity to go for a bid. The other things that are done in trying to address the needs of homelessness in terms of rapid rehousing, et cetera, are processes that are already in place in the Department of Health, in our Homeless Services Division, and we're looking to expand that. The city is not looking to address homelessness in isolation, in a silo by itself. We are continuing, and the key word here is continuing, not starting, discussions with the Newark Housing Authority. We're continuing to present before philanthropic and corporate entities. We're continuing to work as a part of, because we are a member of, talking about the city through the Department of Health, a member of the county's continuum of care. So we are engaged and are trying to expand our engagement with all the above entities plus others. But when the bottom line is the city had to respond this time in an effort that was the first time ever for this city to address this issue the way it was addressed.
The biggest issue that I got from several of the vendors who called me, Dr. Wade, I can't speak for my council colleagues, but I know several of the service providers do not feel that the city of Newark is playing nicely with them in the sandbox, and that the city of Newark is not trying to be a partner, and that they left them exclusively out, and then at the last minute said, all right, we can't hold these people anymore, so now you have to absorb them into your entities. So I would suggest that maybe you have another conversation with some of those service providers, because they certainly were blowing up my phone. And I can't speak for my other council colleagues, but I know that they said that they reached out to various council people talking about their displeasure as to how the whole issue was handled, and the fact that they weren't given the money in the first place to be able to do what they do correctly.
Councilwoman, I'm sure that is true, but that, as usual, is only part of the story. There are, most of the people that the city is housing is literally the most vulnerable. These people have timed out in the social service industry. There is not any agency in the federal or state government that will provide any reimbursement for their sheltering. And these are the individuals that are being turned away by all the social service agencies. So the city is literally housing the absolute most vulnerable in this group, and that is the full story.
So how many out of the 220 some 200,000? I'm sorry, we housed how many 200 some odd people at 224?
We have serviced 269 individuals.
On a daily basis, roughly.
Not every day. A total of 269 unduplicated individuals have received services at 224 for a total of over 23,000 bed nights, meaning that over 23,000 beds, if you will, individual beds were occupied by those 269 individuals, just addressing the amount of service that has been provided to that group. The estimate is that between 400 and 500 individuals, closer to 450 individuals in the city of Newark are these unsheltered homeless individuals. And the reason that they are unsheltered is because maxed out is one of a number of reasons, from maxed out to mental health issues to drug issues, etc., which has created a barrier for them to have entrance into the 31 of the 59 shelter facilities that are in the county, 31 in the city. And if these individuals could meet the qualifications, they wouldn't be at 224, they would be in one of these other shelters. So we are taking care of the individuals that don't have access to those shelters at the 224 shelter at this current time.
So what would be the issue to address those who you've already identified? About how many of them are unsheltered? How many fall into that category?
That are unsheltered, the point in time count, I don't have the exact numbers, between 400 and 500 individuals.
Okay, so what's the plan for those 400 to 500 that are not going to be able to go into these other programs because they've either maxed out, whether they have drug addiction issues or mental health issues?
Okay. Between now and June 30th, okay, the leadership of the continuum of care, shelter providers, as well as us in the city, are going to work together to see how many of these individuals we can get programmed elsewhere in terms of sheltering, in terms of getting their mental health or drug treatment needs addressed to the best of our abilities. After that point, okay, unless dollars avail themselves, we don't have the capacity to keep the shelter open beyond that until we get to the winter season. But we take it a step at a time. We take it a step at a time. And again, all we can do is to continue to pursue the resources and the supports necessary to address their need.
Dr. Wade, what's going to happen after June 31st?
That's what I just shared. If the shelter closes, they will be at the same place, okay, with additional focus on support.
So we're going to be back here talking about kicking the can down the road, basically.
Now, what we're going to be doing, with all due respect, okay, is that we will continue to address every potential support, okay? This is not a singular issue for resolution, singular entity to bring resolution. It's going to require the whole community, okay? That's here, okay? It's the county, it's private funders, it's the city, it's community groups, it's everybody.
Dr. Wade, you know how much money exists in the homeless fund?
I do not. I'm not aware of that.
Please, please, please. Okay. Please, officer. There's no need for that. No, there's no need for
Trying
that.
to get the answers.
These are the questions that we're asking from here, and it's our responsibility to do so. Okay?
Mr. President, Dr.
Councilman
Wade,
Ramos.
so I understand the assessment that Jack gave. I will tell you that this morning, we had 2 individuals who made their way over to county welfare who are being processed. So you do have in that population some individuals who have not maxed out as far as their time is concerned. You also have a number of individuals who recently came to the city of Newark from out of state. 2 individuals who were profiled by the local papers last week, one from Atlantic City, the other person who recently resided in Jersey City. Do you have an idea of what percentage of the population at 224 has been in the city of Newark within the last 60 days or have been exported from their hometowns into the city? And it now becomes part of our social service responsibility. Do we have numbers related to that your folks have done an assessment with?
I will get you an exact number. I don't have that number off the top, but I do know that it's an extremely small percentage of individuals. By far, most.
Do you have the Mental Health Association in there doing assessments?
Yes.
Trying to figure out what options they can come up with?
Yes, we do. We have mental health providers from Rutgers Mental Health Services as well as Essex County Mental Health Services who are in the facility 2 to 3 times a week, and they are assessing individuals there and referring them to their larger entities within the city.
And based on your history or the BA or anybody, was this the first time that the city ever had or operated its own shelter program?
This is the first time the shelter has done what it's done over the past 5 months, yes.
Does Jersey City, Jack, or any comparable close to Newark operate a shelter in the state of New Jersey from your understanding?
Send them to Newark.
I'm advised, Councilman, that Jersey City does have a shelter that's open 24/7 just during the winter months.
Code Blue, which is a state law that requires municipalities and county governments to have a housing plan for the homeless. So,
But again, what we should note is that what the city did for the past 5 months far surpasses the state mandate in terms of providing services during the winter months or Code Blues. It's not a state mandate to have a shelter, it's a state mandate to provide Code Blue services, but the mayor has taken the opportunity to expand that to what we've experienced at 224.
I'm sorry, Council President. So, Dr. Wade, please make sure that we get the approval letter from HUD to use the reprogramming dollars for the shelter and what years of those monies that we were talking about. And also, sooner than later, the council should get the comprehensive plan for what the shelter is going to be. And to date, how much money and what were the dollars approved for? And is there a budget showing the expenditures? We want a line-by-line item of the expenditures for the shelter of the $900,000 that was spent. And just very quickly, I received a phone call from a young lady from the Burger Organization, and she was calling me to question me about a credit card charge that I had done at the Robert Treat Hotel. Well, being somebody who doesn't take too kindly to bill collectors calling me personally, I thought she was calling me about a bill that I owed. So I explained to her that I had in fact paid a bill from the Robert Tree Hotel when there was a fire, and that I looked at my statement, and I didn't have my statement in front of me, but don't be calling me because I know I paid Miles. So her response to me was, Councilman, I'm not calling you because you didn't pay. You did pay. I'm calling you because the city of Newark to date has not paid for those fire victims who were down at the Robert Tree Hotel. So my question to you is, whose responsibility was that to make sure that those beds were paid for, those rooms were paid for? And one of the things that I remember distinctly in response to my conversation, that I went ahead and paid for the one family that had those humongous sons, and they were trying to fit 6 people into a room with 2 beds, was that Ms. Donaldson had authorized a certain amount of beds, certain amount of rooms. You all weren't going to exceed that, and that I just need to know, why hasn't that bill been paid as of yet? Or are you aware that that bill has not been paid as of yet?
I am aware of a bill, and I don't know what bill you got, but I'm aware of a bill to the city in reference to the fire victims, and we have the bill, and we are addressing that with Robert Tree.
Okay,
addressing that with Robert Tree.
But,
yes, I'm aware of that bill.
But why hasn't that bill been paid to date?
All I can tell you is we're addressing it now. Okay, we are addressing it. Okay.
But Dr. Wade, that's one of the problems that we have, and we're getting calls from providers who are saying that even with the HOPWA and stuff like that, that they're, as landlords, they're taking our people in, and then the city is not paying them in a timely enough fashion, and we're about to get those folks evicted because we're not spending the dollars directly and paying them in a timely fashion. Are you aware of that as well?
I am aware. We, the city, through the Department of Health, have 12 HOPWA service agencies and 12 ESG service agencies. Okay? At this point, all of the HOPWA service agencies, I think 8 of the 12, 8 or 9 of the 12 of the ESG service agencies, their contracts have gone through and have just been approved, and we are anticipating payment to them in June. Okay? It is, as you are aware, but I'll just reiterate that this is a long process that involves 12 to 14 steps in terms of one being identified as the recipient is going to be recipient of funds, and actually a time that a check can be cut. Those 12 to 14 steps involve 3 different components. One is, I'll call it City Hall, which also includes this council. The second is the health department, and the third is the subrecipient themselves. And so when you look at all of the steps, historically, it has taken many months, and the city has worked to shorten that process, which involves all 3 groups. And this year is going to be the shortest time frame from an agency to be identified as receiving funds and actually getting a check that has in recent years. So we are working to shorten that process. But again, everyone needs to be aware, and if we need to, we can literally right now outline what all those steps are. But the point is, it's not unusual historically to be at this point and the subrecipient have not received the check. But this year, with them anticipating, we're saying we should be able to cut and give them a check in June, will be the shortest time frame in recent years. So we are aware it is challenging for these subrecipients to have to support their programs before they get a check. We're well aware of that, which is why all components are working hard to shorten the process. but that's where we are for this current year in terms of the anticipation of a check being put in a subrecipient's hand.
Well, this question goes into Corporation Counsel and Jack, the business administrator. One entity I'm talking about in particular has waited 1 year for dollars. So what are we doing wrong that it takes a recipient 1 year to receive programming dollars? I know you were working on something to shorten the process, but
Councilwoman, no one should have to wait more than what is reasonable, a 30-day period for a bill that is sufficient in all means. I don't know. I'd have to review this specific example. For the most part, we pay vendors within 30 days. Our healthcare bills are being paid timely now. So perhaps after the meeting, you can advise me of the vendor in question, and
I'll give you 4.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Councilwoman, would you like to give those to me after meeting, and I'll report back at the next meeting?
Okay.
Very good.
Can we move on, please?
Yeah. And give it to them, okay.
Mr. Clerk,
I move it.
Roll call.
with the changes,
With the changes, at $585,000 and June 30th.
And making sure that we get those things answered.
Yes, I have the questions we've written down.
James absent. Shanfield Jenkins.
Yes.
Callum. Yes. Osborne. Yes. Quintana.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Absent.
yes.
Just one last thing. I know that the shelter was open for the warming station because of the bitter cold. Heat is just as horrible, and they're going to be just as vulnerable during the summer months. So are we going to embark with a partnership of some kind for cooling stations?
Right now, the cooling station plan for right now is the same as it's been in previous years. And we have those identified places that persons can go for cooling, okay, from the rec centers to the library, et cetera. The warming centers is because those were overnight stays.
Right.
We embarked on this, okay?
Right.
So
We couldn't use
there's not anticipation for a cooling station to be open overnight.
Okay.
Mr. Clerk,
7R12B is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Water Sewer Utilities for professional services contract for engineering services for construction phase of South Street and Adams Street area drainage improvements.
finally, move it.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
James absent. Shanfield Jenkins.
Yes.
McCallum.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Quintana.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
President Amador.
Absolutely, yes.
Back to the regular agenda, we are on page 10. An ordinance, 8A is an ordinance to acquire all or a portion of 10-18 Passaic Place and 930 McCarter Highway from the Newark Housing Authority for the Riverfront Walkway and to convey the remaining portions of the Newark to the Newark Waterfront Associates, LLC. The administration has requested that this item be advanced and adopted on first reading as 6FA. If that is the council's pleasure. Council of the whole, advance and adopt as 6FA.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
James absent. Shanfield Jenkins.
See, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. 6 what?
We're on 8A on page 10. We're advancing and adopting it as 6FA.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
McCallum.
Yes.
Osborne. Yes. Quintana.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
President Amador.
Yes.
That was 8A, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I was getting those names. So Jack, I wanted to be noted as the sponsor. Is that too late, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President, the ordinance adopted today as 6FA on first reading will be advertised in accordance with law, and a public hearing will be held at the Public Council meeting of June 20th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. here in the council chambers. Mr. President, we have given you several items that are very late starters. I'd like to go through them. The first is 7R1B. This is a resolution ratifying and authorizing the administration for a temporary emergency appropriation for the 2015 recycling tonnage grant. And 7R1C is a resolution ratifying and authorizing the temporary emergency appropriation for the 2013 recycling tonnage grant. If you recall, at the last council meeting, we adopted the grants. These resolutions will insert the money into the budget, which will allow you to do the next two items that in the list. Council of the whole to adopt?
Gonzalez.
Yes.
James absent. Jennifer Jenkins.
Abstain. I wasn't even really paying attention, honey.
McCown.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
McDonough.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Absent. President Amador.
Yes.
The next two are 7R1D is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Administration to use the state contract for heavy-duty regenerative air street sweeper with twin gutter brooms mounted on chassis. This would be the purchase of 2 vehicles. And 7R1E is a resolution authorizing the cooperative purchase agreement for the purchase of the Ravo 51 series street sweepers.
How many of those?
How many? 2?
2 in the first one. No, 2 and 3.
Okay.
Move it.
Second.
Roll call.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
James. Absent. Jennifer Jenkins.
Abstain.
McCown.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
McDonough.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
President Crump absent. President Amador.
Yes.
Okay, now can we go back to, on page 8, 7R6A, Council of the whole to go into an executive session to discuss this with the Corporation Council before we do the vote on it?
Yeah.
Roll call for executive session.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
James absent. Jennifer Jenkins.
Councilwoman?
Huh?
Executive session?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I apologize.
McCallum.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
McDonough.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Crump absent. President Amador.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going into a brief executive session for discussion with the Corporation Council. I ask that if you're not involved in this situation, that you please step out into the hall for a few moments. We are back at the council meeting. We are now on page 8, Resolution 7R6A. This is a authorizing resolution for the Department of Law for settlement of a workers' compensation claim. Council of the whole to adopt?
Gonzalez,
Yes.
James, absent. Pennyfield Jenkins,
Abstain.
McCallum,
Yes.
Yes.
Quintana.
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Trump absent. President Amador.
Yes.
We are now in the public speaking portion of this meeting. This is a 30-minute period in which speakers will be given 3 minutes to speak. When your name is called, when you step to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. You will see a small timing device on the podium in front of you, which will begin counting down your time when you start speaking. When you reach the 2-minute mark, the yellow light will illuminate, indicating that you have 1 minute remaining for summation. When you reach your 3rd minute, the red light will illuminate and there will be an audible sound. Please look forward speaking to the microphone. We are recording these proceedings, and if you turn away from the microphone, we may miss part of your statement. Please address questions to the chair and not to individual council members. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak at this time?
Manera El Boumani. First, I want to ask the North Ward council person, do you still have the list of street pavings that's supposed to be in the North Ward? Because as it appears that they stopped paving the streets that they committed to paving. In regards to the homeless prevention, I asked before, because it seems that, you know, the administration and these agencies don't have a clue on what their plan is to address the homeless population. We get millions of dollars every year in homeless funding, and we still don't have a clue of what's going on with the homeless money. We need structure here. We need some experts, and I brought to your attention way before this happened. Maybe you need to reach out to Monarch Housing. You know these people? You know them? Monarch Housing? Do any of y'all know them?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, well, I know you know because they just did a seminar at Rutgers, what is it? No, New Jersey, Seton Hall Law School. Seton Hall Law School. So we need some experts because, like I said, it's millions of dollars of taxpayer money that's going all over, and nobody really have a clue on how to address the homeless population. So we need to get some kind of structure because we all over the place. Also, we need to call for an audit on the funding. As our councilwoman said, we need to get a line-by-line item on where's the money being spent. Because, again, he came up, Dr. Wade, he don't know, or Jack Kelly don't know where 350K came from, what budget, what this and what's that. But I've been asking all along, could we get a breakdown on where's the funding going in the city? And also, we need to talk about getting a comptroller in here. I don't know, we got an office of ombudsman that's on the books, but that's not being enforced or implemented here in the city of Newark. So we need to really seriously look into the actually getting an office of comptroller to address the issues that are the residents' concerns, because we come to y'all and y'all seem like y'all don't have a clue, or some of y'all don't like us because we want to push y'all too hard, ask y'all the wrong questions, or don't go along to get along with y'all. So we need to seriously think about putting the office of a comptroller or office of ombudsman or public advocate office in the city so we can really address the issues that's really important to the residents in the city. So I don't know what y'all need to do to enforce the office of ombudsman, but we really need that, and we need that really like now. So I don't know what's going on. Because we come to y'all about these same various issues, offer y'all some solutions, ask y'all to get experts in here who deal specifically with rehousing, with the rapid rehousing funding that the city get or whatever the money y'all get, and y'all still playing around with this money. You got money going here and there. You know, imagine what you could do with $1 million in terms of building some kind of structure or some systematic stuff to help the homeless population. So I know y'all ain't got no answers as usual, but we need some answers.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Especially you with all the homeless in Penn Station. You need to have a plan or something.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Former Councilwoman Bessie Walker, 75 Vassar Avenue, Newark, New Jersey, a taxpayer, resident, a community activist. I missed the first portion of the presentation on the homeless issues. And what I did get to hear was money was extracted from various lines, one, the police line, and various other lines. As much as we need police service out there, you're taking dollars out of a police line when we have shootings in the South Ward, Central Ward, and all over this city. I'm against that. Two, who owns the facility over at 224 Sussex Avenue? And did the city of Newark lease this building or rent it from folks? Because when I was in the county of Essex and I was the director of community action doing homelessness, that was owned by a different folks. So did the city of Newark purchase this building? Did the city of Newark lease this building? What? I'm going back. The reason why I'm asking, I'm going to ask some more questions. I know my time is short, but all of this stuff, and I'm going to say it to you all again, and I'm going to look each one of you in the eye. You don't even have a budget in place. You keep doing temporary budgets. You're going to blow this budget out of whack, and during election time, all of that overtime was given to police officers, all that overtime that was given to sanitation, all that overtime that's given to other folks. You all better go look at that budget, because the state has done its budget, county has done its budget, but where is Newark's budget? You are the fiduciary responsible folks to handle that budget. And this budget is going to be blown out of whack. I would love to see where those line items, that money was drawn for those line items. Because again, if you spent $900,000 worth of money, that means that you violated procurement laws. You did not bid out stuff. And 7 months before that, they were going to do the Miller Street project. There's supposed to have been a plan there. Then what happened to the plan? What happened to all of the resources that you now moved over there? And now you got people out. It was supposed to be a year-round venture, and you got people out on the thing. And lastly, I'm going to say, you already know when Dr. Wade went here and indicated that he couldn't, the time frame for pushing budgets forward, he couldn't do. You know, Anibal, when I was in the county of Essex, I set out a plan because we knew it had to go to the freeholders, the county administrators, down back to us, down to the state. Then you back into a plan so that you can get that money to those folks, your agencies on time. You know, I had a whole plan laid out. How do I get stuff to the agencies on time? That's a bunch of bull crap, and you got a BA sitting here once again who's supposed to be over the departments and not doing what he's supposed to do. I'm coming back.
Thank you.
I'll be signing up for everything because I'm going to beat you all up on that budget.
Thank you.
Because I know it's going to be explosive and other things.
Next speaker, please.
Because my taxpayers' dollars is going to be at stake, and I'm going to teach people to come down here.
Mr. Clerk.
There being no other speakers, council to hold to adjourn this meeting.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
James, absent. Jenkins?
Yes. Yes.
McCallum.
Yes.
Osborne. Quintana.
All gonna work.
Ramos. President Amador.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.